This is a response to another one of those group thread posts on a DoorDash forum. But what if I told you that you need to stop being lazy and stop posting questions out here trying to get information from people by putting in no effort of your own? So I see this question out here. Morning drivers, when is the best time to do DoorDash? Well, my answer is going to be different than yours, and I'll tell you why. Because you need to put in the work and need to understand your market. I understand my local market very well, and I've shared some details about it repeatedly on this channel. This is the Forest Lake, Minnesota market, which is about an exurb / semi-rural market about 30 to 35 miles north of the Twin Cities downtowns of Minneapolis and St. Paul. We're about 35 miles north of downtown Minneapolis and about 30 miles north of downtown St. Paul. And we are very different than somebody who lives in the middle of an urban core. My answer to that question about when the best time in the morning is that mornings can be okay. We have one restaurant known for breakfast in Forest Lake, which is called Keys Cafe. They do a very strong breakfast business, always have. It's what they're famous for. They're a Twin Cities chain, but their largest location is in Forest Lake. It is west of the interstate. And in case you didn't already know this, Interstate 35 runs through Forest Lake, but it splits in Forest Lake at a point just south of town, which is called the Forest Lake Split. It splits into 35W going into Minneapolis and 35E going into St. Paul. So we have interstate access to both downtowns. But this market is unique. Keys is the only real restaurant up here that does a breakfast business. We have a Perkins, but they're not very strong. I happen to think that particular Perkins location has about maybe a year left on it before it closes. And how I know their desperation is also from delivery apps. Perkins is struggling because they are using themselves as a ghost kitchen for off-brand food. One of them is called Mr. Beast Burger. Another one is called Papa Corazon's Quesadillas. Those are Perkins in disguise. When restaurants start to turn to ghost kitchen concepts in order to be able to boost their delivery business, that restaurant is likely on the way out. It is struggling. And their parking lot is struggling. Their customer base is very much elderly at this point. There's no reason for a younger population here in town to eat there. It's very generic, basic, boring food. What sets Keys apart basically is they do have some very unique items as far as specific omelets is concerned. You can also order a pancake about the size of a Frisbee. Good luck finishing it off. You only need one, and you certainly don't need to order 2 or 3, although you could if you felt challenged. But Keys is a place that is famous for their breakfast food. High quality breakfast food. Outstanding omelets. And you can really order them custom however you want. You can order jalapeno omelets if you feel so inclined. But they're also huge omelets too, to go along with their massive pancakes. So in this market, breakfast has got one strong location, but the rest of the market, we don't really do breakfast up here very much. The only other place that really serves breakfast food in this market is McDonald's. They're okay. And as I've said before, they're the gold standard for restaurant speed in Forest Lake. So you can do well with McDonald's orders if they're available. But then again, this is a city of only 20,000 people. All right, my answers are going to be different than anybody in that particular thread trying to throw out a lazy question like that. Know your market. Take the time. Do the research. Local knowledge overrides anything else that these apps can even do to you or for you. If they sit there and say, if DoorDash says, "Oh, market is busy, logging now for orders," I'm gonna be like, you know what? It's early on a week. It's a weekday morning right now. I know I might get an order, but I'm not gonna hurry up and drop what I'm doing and log on just because they say so. Because I know that we have one good breakfast restaurant in this town. It does a good business, but it's not enough to keep the market busy as a whole. I may log in just to check it out, see if I can catch one. But I'm gonna I'm gonna keep doing cleaning in my house. I'm gonna keep writing my books. I'm gonna keep doing other things because I wait for orders at home in this market. It makes no sense in my particular market as a whole to go out and driving for orders. We're not busy enough to do that at all. And again, as I said in my previous episode, if I want to do that, I have to go all the way to Minneapolis or St. Paul, go 30 miles down one of the interstates each way, spend my expenses on that, and also spend the same amount to go back. I don't think I can make enough money to offset that. Even with the relative business of Minneapolis and St. Paul, because most of those trips are short. They're stacked back to back to back. You're not spending a lot of return mileage, if any. But I'll stick to my cozy little market up here with low stress driving, sometimes country driving. Peaceful, quiet, I like it. But it's my market. My answers are different. So if you are asking these questions in these particular forums or groups, stop being lazy. Figure out your market. Track wait times like I have. Where I've tracked wait times and determined that this market has a 12-minute average per dash. We also have our restaurants that are worse than others. We have places that lend themselves to strong orders and tips, such as Keys. And we have ones that don't, such as McDonald's. Of course, in DoorDash, it's pretty easy to figure out which ones have the tips and which ones don't. We all know how to do that. But stop being lazy. Stop asking these generic questions. You're wasting your time and ours by asking them. And the people who answer them are typically going to be wrong. For your market and for your situation, they're not going to have the right answer. I see some cursory answers in some of these threads, but they're answering for their market, not yours. Stop being lazy. Stop trying to get people to do the work for you. Start researching and keeping track of these things on your own. Start tracking wait times. Start tracking which restaurants have good speed, which ones don't. In my case, I start tracking the difference between Home Depot and Menards. There's a big difference between Home Depot and Menards here. In Menards, to pick up, you have to go all the way to the back of the store. You have to walk all the way through. And for all intents and purposes, it's basically a shop and deliver. Because sometimes there's a cart back there, sometimes there's not. Sometimes you have to go get the items yourself. So for all practical purposes, minus the dash card, it is a shop and deliver order. Home Depot will have it ready for you at the front of the store, or in the home and garden area outside, or in the Pro Canopy area. Check in at the counter, they'll tell you which one it is. And if, regardless of which one it is, a lot of times they'll have somebody that'll help you load, which is a nice thing to have. If the mileage is right, I can go to Home Depot with reasonable confidence, but I can't go to Menards. Because the wait time and the time it takes to do the pickup at Menards is much higher than it is at Home Depot. These are the things that you need to know and figure out yourself. I'm not going to be able to tell the difference between those two stores in your market, but that's the way they function in Forest Lake at their locations here. And these trips, again, as usual, typically go decent distances because they're national chains, but they serve a city of 20,000 that has a market trade area of about 50,000 people scattered across hundreds of square miles of rural and ex-urban area. Within about 10 miles of diameter of the city of Forest Lake in any direction. But see, I know this. You don't. You don't live here. You should know your market. You should know the answer to those questions in your market. And I won't because I don't live there. So stop being lazy. Start putting in the time. Start tracking your information. Start building a knowledge base for your area so you know what times are going to work best. I know that on Friday and Saturday nights, the Forest Lake and Hugo area is a single DoorDash zone. So if I have a delivery that goes south to Hugo about 10 miles from Forest Lake, I know that they have restaurants there that may give me deliveries that are going to send me back north. But see, I know this. You don't. Because I live here. You've got crooks in your market. You know those. I don't. So stop asking generic questions in these forums and get your knowledge base built yourself. Because we're not going to do it for you. We can't do it for you. People will give you generic answers in these threads, but they can't answer what Matt works best for you. I'm going to leave it at that for now. I will see you on the next go-around. Remember, do work. Do the work. Stop being lazy. Stop coming to these forums expecting easy answers to be given to you. Because even if they are gift wrapped to you, they're usually wrong for your location and your market. I will end there. Peace out, homies.